Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How are you, Eric?
Fantastic. And of course, as our listeners,
but it's nice
as our listeners know, we are in the Northeast and we are being hit by a blizzard as we record this. So I've already spent part of the day shoveling out. We'll have to do more of that tomorrow. So we hope everybody is staying nice and warm. So our guest this week is Bill Correll. And aside from everything else that Bill has accomplished in his life, Bill is the host of Lighting the Candle, a podcast that's been airing on Facebook and is now joining the Xvadio podcast network. So welcome to the network and welcome to the Success Showcase, Bill.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate that lovely introduction. So what will we talk about today, my friend?
Well, let's start out. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your journey, what brought you here.
Sure. I've been interested in business since I started working for other people, and I was 4 or 5 years old. My first job was picking the paper up from a guy and delivering it into a door from one end of the sidewalk to the other. And at the end of the week, he gave me a shiny Franklin $50. So since then, things have gotten a little bit more complicated and, increasing responsibility. I came out of some manufacturing and facilities management type positions until I was about 35 years old and started my own company along with my partner, Dan Stafford, back in 1990. And since then, Dan has gone his way and I've gone mine. And I built the company up over the past 31 years to do a lot of different things, but mostly concentrating on managing other people's problems. So what that looks like is their networks, keeping them safe and secure, also helping them with training needs, any type of consulting that's necessary, upgrading their buildings, to green standards, making them 100% efficient as far as electricity and heat and that sort of thing is concerned. And more recently, and to really take advantage of all the work that I did personally and in teams and with my group, leadership skills, development of language as a means of growth and development, and the whole idea and notion of creating empowerment, encouragement, and engagement for all people in all areas of life so that everybody is self-expressed.
I also know you're big into connecting, and networking is a topic that we've talked about numerous times on the Success Showcase. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you approach connecting people, how you approach networking, and where you find the value?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because there are several different interpretations of what networking is. And where I'm at, speaking for myself, is networking is making as many friends as possible and understanding and really knowing, liking, and trusting them and vice versa, to the point where I'm comfortable introducing them to either newer friends that seem like they have great possibility and or need, or more or less just staying in touch with folks, and when time comes to either put a group of people together to do a project or work on an approach for a new product or something of that nature, I've got a really great go-to group of folks that are ready, willing, and able to play. So the other part of that is that I didn't say is my philosophy is twofold as far as networking is concerned. And the overriding principle of I can have anything that I want, provided I'm willing to help enough other people get what they want first. That's something that I've really put into a very dogmatic practice in terms of trying to be, mindful of it all the time. And the other thing is that people tend to do business with people that they like. That said, if you're in a situation and making friends and getting to know each other over a long period of time, these are long-term relationships. They're not one and done sort of a thing. I get a transaction from you, I give you $1 for finding me a lead, and hopefully I'll see you again one of these days. There are people that we're going to have that kind of a relationship with, but most of the folks that I'm looking for want to go to a deeper level. They really want to find out how we combine with each other as far as our talent, skills, and the types of things that we're interested in, who we want as our ideal clients. And that said, after being in business, both for myself and for other people, now going on to pretty darn close to 50 years, it's nice. It's really nice to be able to communicate with these folks on social media and stay in touch with them in other networking spheres as well.
Yeah, networking is a really unbelievable way to just run your life. The bottom line is, my definition is, it's just the process of developing win-win relationships. Most people, when they join a network and they're coming in for a business saying, go sell, go sell, go sell, they're coming to a meeting looking at prospects there. But the bottom line is, people don't bring shopping carts to go to networking meetings. And as you're saying, it's all about developing these win-win relationships. And the nice thing about that is everybody knows an average of 200 people. And just by developing their trust, those relationships become potential resources. And you just enumerated how you've been using those over the year. And that's what makes it fun, too. I mean, I was intimidated with networking when I first joined it, but it's just amazing. Now that we're in COVID, though, the face-to-face meetings have gone away. However, we're doing a whole lot of Zooming. Can you shed a little light on your read as far as where networking is now and where we're moving towards the new normal?
You know, we've been talking about some new normal coming now for 12 months. I think this is the new normal. This is really about keeping all things in their proper perspective, the right amount of medical safety, the right amount of of social intimacy and opportunity to do things in a business way that not only utilize what we've got from a technology standpoint, and Zoom is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other tools that we can stay in communication with each other. Just a telephone call, believe it or not, is considered by a lot of people an extraordinary outreach, because they're only used to having these so-called one-on-ones. And I'm not completely certain what that's all about, but most of the folks that I know that are new at networking, they say they live and die by their one-on-ones, but they're really not getting much business. And so I think there's something there that's missing in terms of a deeper knowledge of what exactly they bring to the table that makes them a unique source for, let's say, talent and expertise and products that other people who seem to have the same title don't have any ken for. They really have no idea. So the networking these days comes down to being judicious and I think expeditious. Those two things, in application together, it's like if you go to a networking meeting that has 150 people at it, and you didn't start the evening off by meeting with your half dozen or so, less than arm's length, what I call intimate networking buddies, and tell them exactly what you're looking for out of all that. And they find out from them what they need so that each of you can refer back and forth to each other in that environment. If you go home with a bunch of business cards or hand out a bunch of business cards, you really missed an opportunity to get to know people.
Yeah, I think the missing element is something you hit upon earlier. You said, you get what you need by providing what other people need first. Yes. And that's really the key. I mean, when you're doing networking, it's about how you can be useful to the people in the room. And when you provide that value, they tend to provide value back. But you have to, keep that in mind. The other thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if it's my goal to incorporate that into my brand, what I'm known for. And I think of the people that have hung around with me for the last 2 or 3 years, what you're going to hear from most of them is that Bill's just he's a power networker. The guy belongs to 11 or 12 different organizations that all network. And he's usually at the center. He's kind of the hub, that joins the spokes together and gets people in small groups or even starts new networks when that's called for.
You made another comment about the we've been talking about the new normal for the last year, and I've come to absolutely hate that phrase.
It doesn't really mean anything. It's harmless, but it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, normal has always been adapting to whatever the situation is.
Yeah,
so
well,
the new normal is the same as the old normal.
All right. Did you two gentlemen take any psych courses?
Yes, I did.
I took a 3-credit course called What the Hell is Normal? So the point is that normal is kind of an economic, other things equal description of what normal people would do or would be expected and customary and ordinary given a certain set of circumstances, which the world almost never, operates in that fashion. You got to get out of bed every single day playing heads up ball.
Exactly. The world is always changing. We have to adapt to what those changes are and hopefully figure out how to take advantage of those changes to benefit not just ourselves, but everybody around us.
Sure. And Chip, there's nothing personal coming at you for using that term. The whole idea is that we all live in the world of cliches. Me especially. We have to say things that relate to other people very quickly in order to get their attention and keep it or get into a more deep discussion. Like, what do you mean by that? As once you said what you said, then Eric and I had an opportunity, to bat the ball back and forth across the net another couple of times with no intention of diminishing you or anybody else that uses that term.
No, it's funny because you're right. I mean, I do kind of let things flow out of my mouth from time to time. And yet here I am, my brand name is the Happiness Success GPS. And I talk about every single present moment being an opportunity to do something new. And every single present moment is different. So it talks about change. And, you talked about positive mindset. When I teach positive mindset development, I talk about number one, that's a choice. I talk about number two, and this is what networkers need to be too. Unconditional givers, because what goes around comes around. Number three is really realizing that the person in the mirror is 100% in control of yourself. And then number four, finding your passion and purpose. But when I talk networking, it's really, really important to do your preparation. So what is your value added? Just like you were saying, what do you bring to the table that way? Identify people that you need to meet with. I mean, your commercial is all about developing resources and walking away, whether it used to be physical coffee dates, but now it's Zooms and phone calls and so on and so forth. But you have to go in there with a plan, just like you're talking about. And once you do that, basically what you are is a resource for everybody. If anybody wants to meet somebody, they know they can call Bill because and have trusting relationships with a whole lot of people. And once you get that reputation, the magic happens and people just gravitate to you, which has happened for a long time.
Yeah, the really interesting thing that happens after you become what I like to call a bull goose, loony networker, is these are the people that all they want to do is to meet people and introduce people. And if they're really smart about it, then what they're doing is they're creating value in every introduction. They're not just, introducing for the sake of introducing. And how this really starts to manifest itself over time as it goes beyond the small groups and the small dates and everything, it goes on to creating teams for collaboration, for doing events together, for co-sponsoring and co-branding different types of things that go on in the world, things they would do anyway, but why not share, share the juice and share the energy and share the wealth with a half a dozen other people. And so inside of the COVID culture as it is right now, the challenge is to create these opportunities. One of the things we did this summer was to get a half a dozen people together and work on PowerPoint presentations and just short 6-minute talks on something that they have that's very valuable that other people would want to listen to. So, for example, insurance guy is going to be talking about how you get a proper review from somebody on an annual basis to make sure that everything that's going on in your business is adequately covered, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, educational presentations like that are always useful. And I think more and more people are finding them because they're now virtual. They're looking for events outside of their immediate area, where when networking was live, they'd go, well, okay, I want to travel, no more than 15 minutes to get to an event. Now they're looking at things around the country, around the world, and they're really starting to expand their horizons.
That's true. And the interesting part of it is, I mean, there's always a silver lining, isn't there? And the interesting thing here is that we all got to see up close and personal what we didn't know about the ease of this medium. And quite frankly, the power of it is so much greater than social media. So if you start to build out a way to attract people, it works for networking. It actually works for finding out who's interested in your products and services. But the whole idea of doing ads that come back to like a lead pages sort of a thing that gives them information to go to sign up for an event. And the other thing I find too, I feel that people are much more likely to be willing to see value in the time spent on Zoom or I use Ring Central if they think it's an event and they don't think it's just a standard meeting. There's this, I hear it, like I went to a meeting with those people last month. I didn't get anything out of it. Well, that's very interesting, But if you come to an event, you never know who's going to be there, and you're going to possibly listen to people in a slightly different way.
That's true. And unfortunately, I've heard comments like that before. I was once told by somebody, networking doesn't work. I went to a networking meeting once and nothing happened, so I never went back. Well, that just shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what networking is.
Yes.
When you're building relationships, it doesn't happen all at once. You meet people, then you go to a one-on-one, grab a cup of coffee virtually in these days. But it's about building long-term relationships and talking on a regular basis so that you're top of mind and you're also helping people out. Yeah. I mean, I know I've talked about this, previously. There are many times I get a ton of newsletters in my inbox, and I'm sure most people do. And periodically I'll see an article and I'll go, oh, I know who would benefit from seeing this. And I'll forward it to them with a quick note saying, saw this article, thought you'd be interested. How's everything going? Yeah. And it's that sort of thing that, that's what I do to sort of stay top of mind and keep relationships moving forward. But the key is to keep the relationship moving forward. It's not just seeing somebody once and expecting something to happen.
It's true. And the other part of it is, if you were an athlete, there would be a whole lot of preparation that you would do prior to game time. And what I find with a lot of small business owners is they have no idea what to do with their downtime. Their downtime is to relax and to, play video games and maybe, spend a little bit of time talking to family and what have you. And the uptime is showing up for a meeting, maybe getting there 5 to 10 minutes late. When they actually get into the meeting, when it's time for them to speak, they're unprepared for it. They do a lot of ums and ahs and all the rest. It doesn't make them a bad person, but you have to consider that not only is your service valuable, but your level of likability, trustworthiness, and professionalism is quite valuable too. So I'll give you a little anecdotal story. When I lived in Denver, my uncle used to come and pick the 3 boys of us up. I was the oldest and I was 5 years old. And we would go down to this lake where they had swans and ducks. And the first time that we went, my Uncle Bud said, call out to those swans and ducks, see if you can talk them into coming over here. Well, we did that. And so the next time he dropped us off at home and he said, from now on, every time your mom finishes up a loaf of bread, take those ends and, the crusts and put them in the bag and put them in the bottom drawer of your stove. And the next time I pick you up, bring them along. We had no idea what he was talking about. The next time we got there, he said, go ahead and call those swans over. And he said, how's that going? And they're not coming. Okay. So do me a favor, tear off a little hunk of that bread and throw it in the water. Holy mackerel. Have you ever seen 5 or 6 birds swim to the same spot all at the same time? So it's the same sort of an approach. If you know what swans are looking for and they want bread, you need to find out the folks that are going to be your powerful network referral partners and bring that with you and be able to bring value to every get together.
Yeah, it's about the people. It's not about the sales. And you talked about the preparation side of things, and that's so important because basically what you need to do is you need to be able to provide the resources or do something yourself for people when they need or want something, and you never know when that's going to happen. So it is all about the relationships, and people are interested in you and not what you do. So, and that's what makes it fun also, because it's fun getting to know people rather than listening to a whole bunch of sales pitches.
Yeah, and to that point, it really does my heart good to have certain people say, Bill, we don't really know what you do. And I said, it's a shorter list to tell you what I can't. No brag, just fact. After getting to be almost 70 years old, lots of communication with people. I either know what you need or I know somebody who does. And if you really need it, we can make it happen for you.
Great. And of course, now you're taking all of that experience and you're turning into a new direction, which is your Lighting the Candle podcast. So tell us how you came up with the podcast.
First of all, the Lighting the Candle had something to do with the old story and current events at the time. It seems like maybe May, June, July, that time frame, when we were watching the West Coast cities being lit on fire every single night. I was not interested in having a political discussion about who's right and who's wrong and how it should be dealt with. What I was more interested in is how do we build bridges between people that are not in the custom of speaking to each other, who actually feel that it's a very dangerous idea, to be in communication with somebody else who may change their ideas or mind, right? And so what do you do to, the story being, it's better to light one candle than it is to curse the darkness, right? So I called up 3 or 4 of my friends and I said, hey, I want to have some conversations that are all about empowerment. Doesn't matter who's listening to it. Let's just see if there is some way for us to have a conversation that other people would consider inspirational in their lives, and also at some point be willing to give us some feedback on and join in on the conversation. Maybe we'll do a podcast. So that's kind of how it got started. If people are showing up in the streets, throwing rocks and bricks at each other and shooting rubber bullets and lighting buildings on fire, I'd say there's something amiss in their communications. So that's what we're working on. Language. We're working on the ability to build bridges, the ability to understand what your own capacities are, or to be able to separate what you know in your heart is your reason for being on this earth, and not just buying into somebody else's agenda for you.
I absolutely love that, because I have been inundated with posts on social media of people saying, well, if you don't agree with my viewpoint, just unfriend me. And it's like, no, you do not shut conversation down. Ideas need to be expressed and discussed.
Yes, so, when I was in grammar school, there was a kid that had a book cover on it that said, ignorance is bliss and I refuse to be made unhappy. So not open to conversation. Well, thank you for letting me know from the get-go. At least I don't like to talk to people who aren't listening. But I thought I never quite understood what that meant until I got older. But when I finally did, I saw the joke in it for it to be like on a third grader's, book cover.
No, I love the focus of the podcast. And again, it's something we need to do on a regular basis. Open up lines of communication, talk with folks that you may not agree with. Back in, I guess it was 98, 99, there was a show on television called Sports Night.
Yes.
And Robert Guillaume played the managing editor of this sports program. And he had a line in one of the episodes that I have never forgotten. He said, if you are a stupid person, surround yourself with smart people. If you are a smart person, surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you.
Yes.
And I've always loved that, because that's how ideas occur. It's when things come together that might not fit and you see where they lead.
Yes. And the whole idea of our podcast, you've actually sat in as a guest, and the whole idea is completely unscripted. nobody even knows what we're going to talk about. I don't know what we're going to talk about before I hit the record button. And then whatever seems to move us, we talk about that. And the rules are, there are no rules. You don't have to take what I say and then work only with that. But let's just see what the inspiration is and what your experience and how that comes out. And the neat part of it is that if somebody says something and somebody else has a different experience or a different way of languaging it, it sounds like at first that they're not agreeing with each other. And you know what? That's beautiful, because it's in the, kind of distinguishing exactly what different things mean that you get understanding, the work. That's where the muscle building comes in. It's the same thing in networking. It's the same thing in life. If you're out to make a difference and if you're out to bring empowerment to all situations, that makes your job very, very easy, and there's nothing to remember.
Exactly. I love that. I'm thinking of, I believe it was Mark Twain who said, "I never tell a lie this way. I never have to remember what I said."
That's right.
It's...
Didn't have a good enough memory to keep the story straight.
Exactly. If you tell the truth, you don't have to.
Well, and that goes for the ideological dogma as well. And unfortunately, what we have seen is that the folks that are arguing for something that runs out of juice from a logical and sense standpoint, they have to resort to some other tactic, or very young tactic, either screaming or yelling or punching or that sort of thing. That makes for really bad, get-togethers at business meetings.
It does. It also leads to some very interesting Thanksgiving dinners.
For sure. Yeah. I love you very much, but I can't stand being with you.
Exactly. All right, we're coming up on the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from this episode?
I love the lighting the candle name for the podcast, and empowerment is what we're all meant to do with each other. And the more that we can help empower other people by encouraging them and listening to them and discussing things with them, that's what life is all about.
Absolutely. It's building a critical mass that is unmessable with regard to the forces of darkness and the forces of it doesn't work. It does work. The world works. Let's just get on board.
Exactly. I think for me, the big takeaway is keeping the lines of communications open and being open to doing things for others before they do things for you. It tends to work out in the end as the best thing for everybody.
Yes.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Lighting the Candle is joining the Xvadio Podcast Network. So over the next few weeks, you'll be able to listen to that podcast everywhere where the Xvadio Network is. And of course, for now, you've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. Lighting the Candle will be joining us there, as well as on all of our platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.